Hey everyone, before we get into this week's beginner bootcamp replay, I want to let you know that it's not too late to join. We just got started here. You're not behind if you want to jump in the fun. And there's exercises, there's all kinds of great things to check out for the next 5 weeks. Don't be shy. Just go to cgforge.com, look for the beginner bootcamp section, and sign up there. Without further ado, let's check it out. Okay, awesome. Well, like I said, welcome everyone to the 2025 Beginner Bootcamp. Really excited. This is the first time I've done this with CG Forge, and there's going to be a lot of great things coming up for the beginner. So let's first dive into what all you can expect. It's going to be 5 weeks of many different things: beginner-oriented talks, hands-on demos, challenges, exercises, connecting with other beginners that are trying to do the same thing you're doing, weekly regimen outlines, Q&A, and all of this generally fits into a format of the beginning of the talk, which is the beginner-oriented talk, then a live hands-on demo, followed by send-off and Q&A. So in general, this is going to be the format for the next 5 weeks. Every single session, you can expect this kind of layout for these sessions. Now, I will say one thing, that because this is the first session and we don't have a baseline yet, we aren't going to do as much live hands-on demo today, but next week we are going to do a lot more of that. Once we have exercises going and once we have people kind of off and doing their thing. So that is what's coming up here. Now, let's talk about the topic of today, which I call the beginner's journey. Today, what I want to do is I want to address a few questions that commonly come up with beginners. And those questions would be things like, what's it like to learn Houdini in 2025? Where do people go wrong when they're learning Houdini for the first time? Where'd they go right? In the many years that I've been teaching this, I've seen people do a lot of wrong things that burn them out and have them quit. And I've seen them do the right things, which help them land jobs or find creative expression as a hobbyist. And then also things like, what should you focus on? I mean, Houdini has so many different things you can do. That's not at all an obvious question when you're starting. And how do I work on my own instead of basically being trapped in tutorial hell? I'm sure you guys have experienced that before, where you're just watching tutorials, you're doing the stuff, but you're never really working on your own, and you're never getting that satisfaction of controlling your projects individually. So we're going to talk about all of that today and much more. And to help us with this, I've developed this crazy looking image in Midjourney. It's like a surrealist painting. And here is basically a scene that I use to visualize the different areas of Houdini and what it's like to be a beginner and start Houdini for the first time. So when we look at this painting here, we can see that in general, this can be divided into different biomes, different zones, if you will. So on the left, as an example, we have Character Valley. And Character Valley is perhaps where all things characters live. So this could be things like Ken effects, hair, crowds, feathers, all the character stuff that naturally complements each other. And eventually, Houdini artists might decide to make shop here in Generalist Mountain, which is probably the most treacherous land of them all, because you have to be good at everything. You have to have a strong knowledge of USD, ideally. You might want to look at third-party software I/O, which means that you might need to understand other programs and how Houdini can export and import from that, and so on and so forth. So right away, I want to point out that some of these lands, some of these specializations are a bit more treacherous in general than others. But we also have things like the desert of VFX. So this is maybe your simulation topics, right? Now, eventually, as a beginner Houdini artist, you want to spend some time choosing a zone and developing your skills in a specific area for a little while. And this is naturally what people do. And they'll spend years, perhaps their entire career, just staying in Character Valley as an example. And so when you have all this, you also have all these different directions that are possible in Houdini. And so I'm sure here with all of these, with all of you guys, there's probably about 20 different directions you all want to go in. And in general with Houdini, there's probably like 100 different things that can inspire you, right? Some of you might be into NPM. You might have seen that amazing Houdini 21 NPM thing, and that's what got you excited. And that's what has you motivated. You want to go over there and figure that out. Or maybe it's Pyro, or maybe it's whatever, inspires you, whatever it might be. So the bottom line is that as a beginner, this is kind of overwhelming. And by the way, as a teacher, it's also kind of overwhelming because all of you want to go in 50 different directions at the same time, which makes it kind of difficult to teach this stuff. Now, we'll get more into how to deal with this later on, but just know that this is the landscape. This is kind of where things start. What we can say here in conclusion is that Houdini allows you to do anything, and that can be kind of overwhelming because there's different directions. And you also need to remember that you're not going to conquer any of these lands overnight. It takes people years to truly become masters of their domain. It's just a normal thing. Also, you need to recognize that some areas are going to be more treacherous than others. So, for example, if you go over to the desert of VFX and you study particles for a little while, that's going to be much more doable as opposed to climbing to the top of Generalist Mountain and learning everything there is to know about USD right away. So as a beginner, you want to eventually find those areas that are more approachable and conquer that first before you go off into, the more treacherous lands, essentially. Now, all of this is rather abstract, and I know this is kind of a bit of perhaps a surreal talk, literally. But let me give you an example of what this looks like in the real world, okay? If we go here to Google and you search VFX job board, some of you may have already done this before, but there is a Google Docs here that is curated by Chris Main. And what it is all the different job postings across game dev, film, TV in the world. And there's so many different incredible opportunities that pop up on this list every day. So again, to find this list, just Google VFX job board, and it's like the first result here. Now, the cool thing is that you can go and filter this. So you can say, let's filter by Houdini at the very bottom, which is right here. And we can get a sense of what these different lands look like, these different specializations that people get into. So as an example, if you scroll down, there is an asset artist position here at Zoic. And there's one over here at this studio in Poland. And over here, you can see what sort of requirements they're looking for. So as an example, this one here uses Houdini Redshift. And you can just click on these job postings, get a feel for the specific things that people are looking for in that land, in that specialization. And the cool thing is that by doing this, by always looking at these job posts, you can get a stronger sense of what you need to study to become a master of a particular domain. So I just want to point that out. This is like a real world example of what these different lands look like, but that's what I'm talking about here when I'm using this analogy. So let's go back to our presentation here for a moment. And now I want to switch things up. I want to talk about you, specifically, the beginner. And continuing with our analogies, I have right here Timmy the Brave. And Timmy the Brave is brand new to Houdini. He has a valiant heart and he's looking off to the distance and he's saying, wow, that looks amazing. Look at those mountains and look at the pyro and the NPM, like all this cool stuff. And as Timmy said that, other people have listened. You might have workshops or you might have course creators like myself that say, yeah, Timmy, that's awesome. Like, look at how amazing Pyro is. Watch me do it. Like, watch me do it for like $6.99 and I'll be your mountaineer guide through the mountains. So go charge forth right away. And the side effects billboard's kind of like the same. It's saying, wow, guys, check out our free new mountain lodge that we put right at the top of Generalist Mountain. It's at the top, and climbing ropes may or may not be included, but hey, that's your problem. Like, it's really cool. Come, check it out. And this all basically inspires Timmy to go and charge forth as quickly as possible to any of these things that inspire him. However, there is one big problem with all of this, and that's the fact that there's a dragon that lives over there in those mountains, and Timmy doesn't know about that yet. It's hidden behind the clouds. And, well, what do you think is going to happen to Timmy when he goes charging forth into Generalist Mountain with his jean shorts, or jorts, as they say, and a t-shirt and some tennis shoes? Well, he's either going to freeze to death or the dragon's going to eat him. And this is unfortunately what I've seen happen to many, many beginners. They go off and they charge towards whatever inspires them, and they run into things like poor documentation or assumed knowledge. They're watching tutorials and the lecturer assumes that you know a lot already. Or perhaps there's unexplained terminology and you don't know what people are talking about. Might as well be speaking Latin for all you know. And sometimes there's Vex and Python coding as well that'll overwhelm you. Or just in general, complex systems that haven't been simplified for mere mortals so that it's easy to use and it's all intuitive and fun. And also, don't forget, the whole point of CGI is to make amazing looking renders. So it's going to be assumed that you already know a thing or two about shading, modeling, lighting, rendering, compositing. And, well, you want to make things look as good as what you're inspired by, right? So that's all kind of assumed. And, well, this is exactly where Timmy wants to go right away. He charges forth, and guess what? He gets killed by the dragon, and Timmy is never seen again. He goes back to Blender, or he does something else with his life. And unfortunately, in the over 10 years of teaching Houdini, I've seen this happen hundreds of times to people, to beginners. And it's tragic because, well, I don't want to see people burn out, and I don't want to see people do that. So, in general, what we can say about this whole situation is that Timmy's unprepared, marketing charges him forth, and then unfortunately, he gets eaten up if he's not careful. So, I know that's all a big bummer here. So, let's talk about the plus side now. Let's compare Timmy to this knight in shining armor. Here's what you should do as a beginner. Here's how people succeed, okay? As you can see, the knight in shining armor here is much more prepared for a dragon. Or if he wants to go over to the desert of VFX and battle some sandworms over there, he's going to be able to handle that much better than the t-shirt and shorts situation, right? This knight in shining armor can go in any direction and be okay and conquer whatever he might face. And that's because he's spent time building his armor. Metaphorically speaking, we can take the helmet as an example. This is someone that has practice with reading the documentation, engaging in community forums, establishing a network of friends to help him out when he gets stuck. And as a result, he can quickly learn anything. To this day, I have a network of friends that I've known for years where if I don't know something in Houdini, if I get stuck, I can just call him up and have that quicker answer and say, hey, have you figured this out yet? And that's a huge piece of armor that will help me out. Or let's take the shoulder armor right here. Maybe this is how you understand a wide variety of universally used terminology and concepts, especially as it relates to primitive types, data types, and commonly used attributes across Houdini. That's going to be handy. Or let's say the gloves. This is a strong understanding of how data flows across Houdini in different contexts. So you know what different contexts are used for. You know where data is traveling throughout the pipeline, and you can really conceptualize and manipulate this data at will. That is a really strong skill to develop. What about the shield? Maybe you figured out a rendering workflow so that, well, no matter what you make, you can make it look good. You've gone through the process of lighting, shading, modeling, doing all of that so that if you need to render anything out, it's not a big deal and you can work quickly and efficiently. What about the sword? This maybe is how you understand your time management and your calendar in general. It's setting realistic goals. It's staying consistent. It's being patient and how you gradually build your skill. Not everyone does that. And if that's part of your armor, if that's part of your secret to success, it's going to serve you really well. And last but not least here, what about the boots? Maybe you've spent time learning and practicing in not just one kind of way, but a variety of different ways. So that means watching tutorials, experimenting on your own with personal projects and working independently, and also going through exercises. We'll talk about this a bit more here in a minute, but you want different parts of your regimen to make you stronger, and that eventually becomes part of your armor. So in general, we can say that Timmy the Brave is now better described as Timmy the Prepared. It takes more than a good heart to conquer different lands in Houdini, and preparation is the key. So this is what I want to do here with the boot camp. And this is how we're going to, or I'm going to help you as best as I can navigate the 50 different directions that you all want to go in. Instead of focusing on the destination, focus on the armor. Focus on the fundamentals of your skill set so that it doesn't really matter which direction you go in. You want to be generally prepared no matter which way you go. That's going to be the goal here of the boot camp. And hopefully by the end of 5 weeks, you've built up a decent set of armor that'll send you in whatever way you like. Okay, let's now go through a few takeaways just to sum this up here. Learning Houdini can be exciting, but overwhelming at the same time. People go wrong because they charge forth too soon without enough preparation and they get overwhelmed. Also, they go right in how they focus on learning universal CGI concepts. If developing yourself as an artist is your primary goal, you're much more likely to handle any challenge in the future. Additionally, where people go right is that they research problems, they ask questions, they're always curious, they're practicing in a variety of ways, they manage their time, they set goals, they show up even when they don't want to, and they make an effort to be a positive contributor towards the community. These are all the important things that will help you succeed ultimately if you want to conquer anything in Houdini. Now, as a few miscellaneous notes here, I just want to mention a few things I see happen often with beginners that doesn't really work out. There's this monkey see, monkey do approach that happens with beginners where you have tutorials and you want to copy someone that's doing something cool. And the mindset is, well, if I just copy the parameters, if I just plug in the values, or if I just use a shelf tool, then that's enough to know Pyro, or that's enough to know whatever it is that you're trying to do. And unfortunately, if you go with just the copycat route or the shelf tool and copy, you're not going to really know what you're doing. And if you don't know what you're doing, you're not useful in production because you can't handle client notes and you can't really make things on your own. And as an artist, you're extremely limited as well. So you really want to focus on gaining that independence. That's where you want to be. And by doing that, it's also going to make it much faster and easy to copy others if you ever want to in the future. The last thing I'll say here is that there's a big difference between a pro and a hobbyist. And the analogy I give to this is, well, kind of like sports. Like if you want to be a soccer player, you can be a soccer player and have a fun time hanging out with your community soccer league in the afternoons and just have some fun with your friends. That's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But there's a very, very big difference between someone who's that kind of soccer player and a soccer player who wants to be professional. The difference is that the professional is willing to make many sacrifices in their time. They're willing to essentially let a coach torture their bodies to bring them into top physical shape. And they're willing to make a lot more sacrifices in order to reach those high levels of competency. And it's really no different in Houdini. It's the same with any artistic approach. If you want to be an incredible musician, there's a big difference between practicing and playing. Playing is fun. Practicing often is not fun, but it helps you play. And well, with Houdini, you'll want to go back and forth. Have a little bit of fun. Make sure you're not burning yourself out and having a good time, but also making some sacrifices to build up your skills and your competency. So now what? That is naturally the next question. Where are we at now with this boot camp? Now that we've talked about all the fancy abstract stuff, normally this is where I would do a live demo and I would open up Houdini and we would stop, being so abstract and all of this, be a little bit more practical, right? But like I said, because everyone here is at a different level, some of you have maybe never installed Houdini before, and others might have been using it for months now, or perhaps even years. Because we're all over the place, we need to start with a baseline. And then next week, we'll open up Houdini, go through some exercises, review some stuff, and then go from there. So what I want to do instead is I want to give you a challenge for this week. So between now and next Wednesday, I want you to install Houdini if you haven't done so yet. I want you to establish a basic rendering workflow. And that could be using any render engine you want for now. So figure out how to import a model off of Fab, apply a shader, light it, and render it with a backdrop. Just a very basic A to Z, just make a render of some kind. Watch Houdini for the New Artist 1. That's totally for free. You can go to CG Forge for that, or you can watch it on YouTube. Go through the exercises in Houdini for the New Artist 1 that are designed for a beginner. And then also, we'll talk about this here in a second. I want you to connect with someone in this workshop individually. You really want to start building that network of people that you can ask questions to and hang out with and connect with. And so I want this to be a great excuse for you to connect with other people that are doing the same thing you're doing right now and to make some new friends. Last but not least, I have the attributes, groups, and variables video in the Houdini Principles course for free. And that's only going to be free for this week, by the way. And so I'll pull that up here in a minute, but basically it's really important that you understand attributes, groups, and variables. That's at like the core of Houdini. And I want to give you a free week of that section of the course so that you all have a very strong grasp on that. Okay, and then also one more thing. If you're looking for an extra challenge, if you're someone that has a bit more experience and this is a bit easy for you, then my next challenge would be to create a render that looks as awesome as possible. Using just the model, some shading, lights, how cool can you make something look? Can you tell a story using that? I mean, how far can you push this with limited ingredients? And then try to share that on the Discord for some feedback, for some artistic critique. Maybe you get some critique on lighting or camera work or whatever it might be, but make that your mission. And then also, just as a bonus, explore some SOP nodes and use them creatively in some kind of way. And I'll leave that to your interpretation, however you want to do that. So there are the different challenges right there. This right here is at a minimum, and this right here is if you want to go the extra mile. One last thing here, there is some regimen examples I have here. So I know you all have different schedules, different time constraints, and I've made a general outline to help you out with this. So if you're someone that only has, let's say, an hour a day to study this stuff, make it your goal to just hit one of these bullet points every single day. It only takes about an hour to install Houdini or less potentially. And same with many of these different things. If you have 3 hours a day, then my recommendation is to spend your first hour warming up with a Node Bible entry, or picking up a node in SOPs and then learning about it. So here at CG Forge, if you don't know about this, I have something called the Node Bible. And this is a collection of different nodes that it's basically like a quick tip and a simplified write-up of these different things. And so this is all for subscribers only, but even if you're not a subscriber, you can still just pick one of these nodes and YouTube videos on it, bring up the user docs and just pick one out and play with it for a little bit. You want to start building this encyclopedia of nodes in the back of your head. And so I find this to be a great way to warm up for the day if you have a bit of extra time. And so once you do that for hours 2 and 3, then you go through these bullet points, lists, items here. And then last but not least, if you have a full 8-hour workday to study and to do this stuff, warm up with the Node Bible entry for 1 hour, play with it on your own for 2 hours, get some lunch, some fresh air, see the sunlight, and go through these bullet points once you get back for 2 hours. Then get some exercise so that you're not withering away in the middle of the day. And try recreating what you just watched for 2 hours on your own without trying not to look at the tutorial, trying to work independently. Then 1 last hour to make 8 hours a day. That's up to you. So you can talk to people on Discord. You can do whatever you want to do for that extra hour at the end. This is just a sample regimen, but you want to have some kind of regimen in order to build up these skills. It's really going to be up to you to get good at this stuff. Okay, so now I want to share this Discord link with you all. And as I said before, I'm going to put this in our message here. Join the CG Forge Discord if you haven't done so already. One thing that is amazing about this bootcamp is that there's people from all over the world that are joining this. And just introduce yourself. Say, hey, I'm Tyler from Denver, Colorado, or whatever, wherever you're from. Maybe say something about if you already have experience or if you're brand new. And then what I want you to do is I want you to pick someone out here and just individually message them. Say, hey, I just joined the boot camp. Would love to learn and study with you sometime. What do you think? I know it's a little bit awkward to just sort of hit someone up out of the blue that you don't know, but I think it's really important to make those connections, and hopefully this boot camp is an excuse to do just that. So again, go here to the boot camp intros. I have a separate introductions page, but try to look for the boot camp intro in particular. You can introduce yourself here too if you want, but anyway, definitely make sure to do that. All right. And that naturally brings us to Q&A. So now this is where I'm going to look at the chat. Be sure to add in your questions there, and I will do my best to answer them. And while we wait on any potential questions here, I do want to also mention, because I think I forgot to mention this at the very beginning, that when it comes to studying for this stuff, let me pull it up real quick. When it comes to studying, there are going to be multiple options. So obviously, if you want to be a subscriber at CG Forge, that's amazing. I mean, that's what pays for the party here. So I hope that you decide to join and have a great time with CG Forge. But even if you don't do that, there's self-study. So going through the documents or documentation, YouTube videos, stuff like that, that's totally an option. Side effects content or other courses. So it's up to you how you want to meet these challenges. The bottom line, though, is that you have to meet the challenges and you have to figure out the exercises. So naturally, it's meant to work hand in glove with what I have at CG Forge, but there are other ways to do this, even if you don't want to subscribe. So I just want to mention that as well, in case that is not clear. All right, so looking here at the chat, is there any questions you guys want to ask? I'll give it a few more minutes here. Okay, this one here is from Carl. Hi, Tyler. I started the Houdini for the new artist project a while ago in 20.5 and completed a bunch of it, but have since installed 21. Is there a way to import the project from the old version, or do I need to start it over? I expect it would be best to start over, but wanted to ask. Yeah, so I imagine you could still open that scene file. I don't see why not. In theory, it should all be backwards compatible. So, you know, go for it. I would say it's probably good just to start it over again, just to refresh yourself on all the stuff. And when you start it over again, try doing a different model besides the chameleon to add a little new spice to it this go around. That'll make it extra fun and interesting for you. This one here is from Ollie. Should we just focus on Material X nodes for shading and drop the old Vex nodes? Yes, I would say that is what you should do. So I assume that you're using Karma for this. Karma has gone through many different shaders over time. So like it used to be, I think we've gone through like 4 or 5 different shaders. It seems like every release there's a new standard shader that Karma wants to use. But from my understanding, as of now, I still think it's Material X. You also do have a Karma material builder that has Material X plus side effects nodes in it. So probably you'd want to go with that, I would say. But yeah, try to do that. All right, this one here is from Maria. Houdini has many branches. To be a junior, do we need to know a bit of everything or just one thing and be good at it? Good question. So the way that I look at it is you want to start by building your armor, and that really isn't about a destination at first. So if we go back to, this whole scene here, or better yet, there we go, this one, you want to start with your armor and then you want to pick something specific or like a general area of study to stay in for a while. So as an example, the first challenge might be to learn some general things about attributes, groups, variables, maybe put together some simple projects here and there as opposed to focusing on anything right away. And then once you've kind of built yourself up, then you can pick a zone and go specialize in that for a little while. Naturally, when you start doing that, you start getting to more that intermediate advanced topics because you're going to be wrestling some sandworms or some dragons at some point or another. You're going to start getting good at that. And then once you've mastered a particular area, maybe like after a year of study, I'd say, then you might want to start looking at other lands after that. So in general, the progression sort of goes like this. You start broad and then you start specializing. And then once you're a bit more advanced and you're more capable, you kind of go broad again and you start adding other things to your repertoire if you want to, if you want to. Okay, let's see here. Jacob, is there a strategy you have for choosing projects, especially as a beginner, that are within a person's reach and not climbing too far up the mountain? Or is it better to dream big and then be okay with taking detours along the way to build up armor? Good question. So, what I would say is that, well, kind of like we were just saying, at first, you want to build the armor and then you want to charge. So nothing you do right away should be like, I'm going to make a demo reel out of this quite yet. Like you want to have a couple of little beginner projects, some exercises under your belt, ideally, and then you go forward and you do something. Let me give you a few tips though. So non-beginner friendly topics would include things like flip, so water simulations, very difficult. Pyro, even though Pyro is fun and awesome, to do a really good job at Pyro, it's actually pretty difficult to get the right layering and look dev and simulation settings going. It's really not the most beginner friendly topic, even though it's awesome. It shouldn't be like the first thing you do. And let's see, studying USD is also pretty treacherous, I'd say, as a beginner. But things that are more approachable and easier would be things like particle simulations. Once you are comfortable with particle simulations, maybe take a look at Vellum as an example. Just general SOP workflows like what cool things can you make in SOPs? That actually should probably come before anything in simulations, even because for simulations, often the cool simulations rely on stuff you do in SOPs so that you give it nice ingredients to work with in the first place. Um, so those would be examples of like good areas to charge forth at first. Okay. And actually, I just want to make one more comment about that. So, um, when I first started Houdini, I started trying to figure out oceans. And naturally, that is not a great idea for a first beginner project. I mean, I was a Timmy who went charging straight into the mountains and almost got eaten by a dragon right away. I didn't get eaten. I got scraped up pretty good, but then I retreated and then I found a different area that was easier to manage without burning out. So that's unfortunately the next thing I tried out was particles. And then after that, I tried out some hair. And then I started bouncing around until eventually, I'd say maybe like 6 months to a year later, I came back to flip and I was much more competent and able to handle it. So anyway, yeah, that's something that I can relate to. All right, this one here is from Carl. Is the modeling toolkit something to focus on, or should we work with other tools like Maya for modeling? I think the modeling toolkit, I assume that, okay, so the modeling toolkit that Side Effects ships with is not great for destructive modeling. So the typical modeling that you're used to in Blender or Maya or whatever, you might be used to. Side Effects in Houdini, you're going to see a lot more things that are great for procedural modeling, and it's kind of, in my opinion, better for that. But with that, it's ideal to know a little bit of Vex, and it's ideal to know a bit about transforms and orientations, and that's not necessarily like the most beginner-friendly thing. So if you want to model in Houdini, like the way that you model in Maya or in Blender, I actually suggest getting something called Modeler for Houdini. It's a plugin that's great, and it's going to make your life so much easier if that's something you want to do all the time. So check out Modeler for Houdini if that's a route you want to go. This here is from JC. Is the bootcamp geared towards any industry or more general introductory overview? It's an introductory overview, and it's all about the armor. So no matter what industry you're in, you can be in video games, MoGraph, film, whatever it is in Houdini, you still need to build your armor, no matter what. That should be like your first priority. It's not about the destination right away. It's about preparing for the destination. And so that's what this boot camp is going to be on, is just trying to address the armor so that I can help as many people as possible, rather than getting into something specific. This here is from Maria. I've heard that Houdini requires knowing math. To be honest, I'm not very good at math or physics. Is it necessary? No, it's not, Maria. And I'm glad you said this because I suck at math. Now it's funny because when I was in college, I took a class. It was like math for the liberal arts or something. And it was totally like this is where the stupid kids go because they can't handle real math kind of class. So that was me. All right. If I can do it, you can do it. And if you want to be a developer and if you want to make your own algorithms and you want to get into coding and some of that, honestly, more like PhD computer science stuff, then yes, they can get very math heavy. But honestly, with Houdini, you can achieve a lot with very minimal knowledge of math. I mean, I will say that you might have to pick up a thing or two here and there, but it's really not as bad as you might think it is at first. You might want to know what a dot product is, a cross product, and maybe gain some terminology with like data types. But all that stuff is not bad, even though it sounds bad. And yeah, I come from an art background. You got this. It's not an issue. This here is from Ed. After the session, where can we find the details of the assignments? I'm going to post them on the Discord. So if you go here to the challenge info, there's the challenge right there. So just click that, and there you go. This here is from Roy. Are there any learning resources that are more systematic or architectural for people who come from a technical background? Example, as a programmer. Yeah, yeah, if you have a programming background, there, so one of the things I would say that you probably are going to enjoy sooner than later is getting into Vex. And so if I was you, I would focus on, and it kind of depends on what you want to do here. Like, are you trying to make visually amazing looking scenes, or are you trying to be more strictly like a pipeline TD? I want to be doing stuff in Python all the time, just development stuff. Depending on that, you have kind of a different route to take. But in general, I would say it's still good to know the pipeline, the process of making a render, even if you are going a pipeline TD route, and then trying to aim towards Vex shortly after that. And that's no matter no matter where you go, you want to do that. Okay, the next one here, 21 has been released. Should we start with 21 or stay with 20.5 for now, and why? Good question. I would say that so we're going to be doing things in 21, but honestly, I'm still kind of concerned with the stability of 21. Usually, when a new version comes out, it's a bit crashier than usual. It takes probably about a couple of months for that to not happen as much. So I would honestly say try going with 20.5. If you do decide to go with 21, we're not doing anything that 20.5 can't do. Okay. But if you want to go with 21, or sorry, yeah, if you want to go with 21, then just know that it's probably going to crash on you more. It's going to be a bit more unstable, and that's because it just came out. So up to you, I would say. Okay, so this is so many people recommend Redshift as a render engine. Is it actually better than Karma? Well, I had a feeling this question would come up because I have some notorious opinions about this. Um, so so yeah, here's the deal. We're going to talk about rendering a bit more next week and render engines in general and what this whole thing is about. I would suggest starting with Redshift. And let me tell you why. I'll give you a sneak peek real quick of what's coming next week. If we take a look at this picture and I said, hey, you need to create a render that's at the top of this mountain. Do you want to climb on the left-hand side or do you want to climb up on the right-hand side? That's kind of like the difference between a render that is difficult to use versus a renderer that's easy to use. And obviously, you want to use a renderer that's easier to use, especially when you're a beginner and especially when you haven't built up your armor yet. Now, the reason why I say that Redshift is easier than Karma as a beginner is because you don't need to understand USD with Redshift. Redshift can work with or without USD. It's not required. USD is required by Karma, and it's a very difficult study. So one thing that often happens to beginners that start Houdini is they try to do Karma, and then they start studying USD right away. And that's very much like Timmy the Brave heading straight into those mountains and getting eaten by a dragon. And that's why I say, if you do go with Karma, that's totally fine, but just don't get caught up in USD. Don't let that dragon eat you if you decide to go with Karma right away. Instead, I like Redshift because it's easier to use. For a beginner, it can get you up and running much faster with less complications. And then once you have your armor built up, once you're a bit more confident and you have some experience, then go back to studying USD and conquering that land and conquering Karma along with it, because they kind of go hand in hand with your workflows. So that's why many people recommend Redshift. And just in general, I just like the user experience better personally. But yeah, as a beginner, that's my recommendation. This is from Maria. What's the job market like for VFX? For example, sometimes a character artist industry can be oversaturated. In the VFX industry, are they currently in demand? Yeah, so the job market in VFX is similar to characters, but it's not as bad. Character artists have an incredibly aggressive cutoff for that. But just know that you're in the game that's all about quality. It's all about how good can you make something look. And like, let's say that I'm making a movie and I'm hiring, I'm going to look at my project and say, I want to make this, and this is the quality I want. And then I'll look at your work and I'll say, does what I make look like what you're doing? And if the answer is no, then the quality isn't there yet. And I'd rather have someone that has two projects on their reel that are just incredible and the quality is just at an insane level. I'd rather see that than someone that's just done a bunch of other things and, kind of just gone maybe like halfway in the quality with more things. So to answer your question, the job market can be tough. However, if you play it smart and you focus on quality and you focus on, building up yourself as an artist, you very, very quickly start making yourself distinguished amongst everyone else. And it's actually much easier to get to that top 10% if you focus on the right things. So tough in general, but not tough if you do it right. Well, what are some of the license requirements for Redshift? It's from John. So the license requirements would be that you need to have either Houdini education or that you have Houdini Indie. And then from there, I believe you can rent it for like $40 a month. And like I said, if your goal is to get to Karma eventually, that's fine. I just think that getting up and running for a little bit is easier with Redshift. It's less problems, it's less complications to worry about. So if you have a little bit of extra funds to do it, I think it's going to save you a lot of hassle and you're going to have a lot more fun while you learn, as opposed to getting kind of caught in the swamp of complications that USD tends to have. So this is from Carl. I seem to be having an issue with the Discord channel. I'm in, but only seeing the main topics. Yeah, I noticed that my fiance Jess had the same issue. If you go to browse channels, look for that. For some reason, it only shows up when yeah, up here, browse channels for some people. I don't know why, but that will probably do it for you, Carl. And let me know if you can't see it. I'm happy to help as well. Yes, I cannot see the beginner bootcamp fall 2025 either. Yeah. Do you see like a browse channel section anywhere? Because I think you have to go there first and then click on that, and I think it should show up. Did that work for you? Okay, perfect. Sweet. All right. Well, everyone, I think that about does it. And thank you so much for joining. This is really a lot of fun. And like I said, next week I'm going to get a bit more hands-on. I'm going to do some of the exercises that are part of Houdini for the New Artist 1 next week. And then I'm also going to make a whole another set of exercises that is related to attributes, groups, and variables, so you can practice more with that. And I'll do some demos of that as well. So stay tuned. Thanks again for watching, everyone. And I hope you all have a fantastic day, evening, afternoon, wherever you might be in the world. And yeah, have fun.